In this movie, I'll show you how to open an image file inside Photoshop just by double-clicking on its icon here at the Macintosh Finder. If you're working on the PC, you can go ahead and skip to the next chapter. So notice that I'm looking at the contents of the O1 Open folder, which is available to those of you who have access to the exercise files. I'm also viewing the images as thumbnails, which you can do by choosing the As Icons command from the View menu. Now, in all, I'm looking at 4 versions of this image: welcome.jpg, welcome.png, welcome.psd, and welcome.tiff, named after the 4 major file formats that you're going to use when you're working with Photoshop. Now, I explain how all these file formats work in Chapter 6 when I show you how to save image files from Photoshop, but for now, it's just important to understand that different file formats are often associated with different applications. Now, if for some reason you're not seeing these 3 character extensions, then you can go up to the Finder menu and choose the Preferences command, and then go ahead and click on this advanced icon and turn on this checkbox, Show All File Name Extensions. And then you can go ahead and close that dialog box. Now, where this system is concerned, my TIFF files are associated with Photoshop by default, which means I can just go ahead and double-click on this file in order to open the image in Photoshop like so. And I know that I'm working in Photoshop because I can see the words Photoshop CC in the top left corner of the screen. I also have access to this context-sensitive options bar. I've got a vertical toolbox over here on the left side of the screen, and I have a series of panels on the right side of the screen. And so this is what you want to see when you're working in Photoshop. Because after all, if you open the image inside some other application, you're not going to have access to Photoshop's powerful image editing capabilities. All right, let's check out the other formats by going up to the Photoshop CC menu here and choosing Hide Photoshop CC, which is going to take me back to the Finder. Now, notice what happens by contrast when I double-click on this JPEG file. It ends up opening in Preview, which is a utility that ships along with every Macintosh computer. And even though it does offer a few basic editing functions, it is not nearly as powerful as Photoshop. So I'll go out to the Preview menu and choose Quit Preview in order to quit the application, and then I'll right-click on this JPEG file and choose the Get Info command in order to bring up this basic dialog box here. Next, you want to go ahead and twirl open this Open With section by clicking on its triangle, and then change the application from Preview, or whatever it is for you, to the most recent version of Photoshop CC. Next, you want to click on the Change All button in order to change all JPEG files so that they open inside Photoshop CC. Then go ahead and click the Continue button, and now you can close that info panel. After which point, if you double-click on that JPEG file, it will now open inside Photoshop like so. All right, that leaves us with 2 more file formats. So I'll go up to the Photoshop CC menu and choose that Hide command. And then I'll double-click on the Ping file, which in my case ends up opening the image in the browser Google Chrome, which is, of course, not remotely what I want. So I'll go up to the Chrome menu and choose the Quit command, and then I will once again right-click on it and choose the Get Info command. And next, I will change Open With from Chrome in my case to the most recent version of Photoshop CC, and then you want to click on the Change All button, followed by Continue, and that will go ahead and update all the Ping images. So now, if I were to close that panel and double-click on the Ping file, it's going to open in Photoshop like so. All right, just one more file to go. So I'll return to the Photoshop CC menu and choose that Hide command. And this time we have a PSD file. PSD stands for Photoshop Document, and it is the most versatile of the file formats because it supports layers and all the other crazy stuff that Photoshop has going on. And so more than likely, this file is going to just open up inside Photoshop when you double-click on it, as it does for me. But as you can see here, I'm confronted with a missing fonts warning, and it's very likely that you will be as well if you're working along with me, and that's because I used a bunch of specialty fonts, including Berka, Futura, Helvetica Neue, and so forth. Now, in another application, this would be a big problem. After all, you need to have the proper fonts open to edit a text layer. And while you can go ahead and substitute your fonts if you like, you don't have to. So notice what happens if I just click the Don't Resolve button. And now what I'm going to do is select my Zoom tool way down here at the bottom of the toolbox. And I'm going to click a few times on the word Photoshop up here at the top of the image until I zoom in to 100%, as indicated by the title tab up here at the top of the screen. Now, I want you to notice something about the word Photoshop there. If I go to the Layers panel, which is located by default in the bottom right corner of my screen, and I scroll up the list until I find this layer right there, which is labeled Photoshop, notice that its icon includes a yellow warning, and if I hover over that warning, it tells me that the font is missing on the system and needs substitution. Well, inside of another application, that would be true. Your font would not look the least bit right on screen. But Photoshop is special in that it saves a pixel preview of every single text layer you create. So as long as you don't need to edit the text, it's going to look absolutely great on screen, and it's going to print properly as well. And that, folks, is how you open an image file inside Photoshop just by double-clicking on its icon at the Macintosh Finder.